Throughout the history of the internet, there have been a number of what you could call creative renaissances, which have sparked from the emergence of certain tools and platforms. It's why indie games took off after the emergence of game engines like Unity, or why every kid thinks they're a filmmaker now because of YouTube. Anyways, this phenomenon seems to make its appearance in the mainstream every half-decade or so, with one of the latest examples appearing through TikTok and short-form content, whether we want to admit it or not. But one of the earliest observable instances of this occurrence comes from a time that predates the new millennia, an era known as Web 1.0. Remember this? That was back when a simple ring on the landline was the only thing that stood between you and your steamy conversation with online babes. It was a simpler time, but a time that was made a whole lot more interesting when Macromedia Flash came to town. Flash was a wildly flexible piece of software that allowed users to produce everything from animations to web apps to online games. Throughout its life cycle, the product would see a frequent changing of hands, beginning its legacy as an app called Future Splash before being acquired by Macromedia in '96, then Adobe in '05, and eventually Software Heaven in 2020. But in its prime, Flash had virtually opened the floodgates for user-generated content, which gave rise to dozens of online portals dedicated to this newfound art form. Of course, with so many amateur creatives uploading their content, quality control was never really a priority, so while many may reminisce fondly about the most iconic Flash works from days past, we may sometimes tend to forget how much utter garbage there was. I guess some things never change. But among all this content, whether good or bad, there always remained one intriguing constant: the stick figure. During this era, the amount of stick-themed content was as much of a phenomenon as the overarching movement itself, and this gave rise to what could be considered by many to be a sort of subgenre within the medium of Flash. It's also intriguing to point out the parallels one can draw between this early era of online creativity and the dawn of artistic expression itself, but we'll save that one for the real intellectuals. Regardless, it's quite obvious as to why so many amateur creators gravitated toward this art style. I mean, stick figures are incredibly easy to draw and relatively simple to animate, so it's no surprise that this subgenre was so attractive to people. This would ultimately give way to numerous online platforms dedicated solely to the art of the stick. Two of the most honorable mentions include stickdeath.com and Stick Figure Death Theater, and the content most certainly lived up to their names. For some reason, the majority of stick figure content was almost exclusively associated with gratuitous gore and dismemberment, backed by the tune of an equally raunchy nu metal riff. I mean, Stick Figure Death Theater wouldn't even let you submit an animation unless a stick figure actually died in it, so you can very quickly get an idea for what the majority of this content was like. And at the risk of ticking off a lot of people, it was mostly pretty tasteless. But that was soon to change, and we'll find out why right after this quick message from today's sponsor. So, you on the market for a VPN? No? Okay, well, I didn't think I was either, but then I decided to take a look back at my internet history over the past week, and it turns out I'm a freak on the net. Apparently I watched this video back to back 6 times. Do you think I'm proud of that? Do you think I want that for me? Thankfully, private browsing is just a click away with Atlas VPN. And right now, using the link in my description, you can snag the best VPN deal on the market for just $1.83 a month. But wait, there's more. You'll also get 3 months extra alongside a 30-day money-back guarantee. Once you snag this deal, installation is as simple as the flick of a switch. From there, you'll gain access to a wide array of features, including Google search privacy, enhanced malware security, device-wide protection, and my personal favorite, worldwide Netflix browsing. That's right, no longer am I stuck flipping through the same old Canadian Netflix options. Now, with the click of a button, "Oh, buongiorno, I'm in France, so watching a Big Mouth." So, if you think you're just as much the geographically confused web warrior as I am, check out the link in the description to snag this deal from Atlas VPN today. Now back to the video. On April 19th, 2001, a Flash animation was uploaded to the entertainment website Newgrounds.com by a user named Zhu. This stick flash, titled as Xiao Xiao Number 1, would soon catch the attention of many users within the Flash community for its fast-paced action sequences and creative use of violence. It also didn't hurt that it was expertly animated as well. After making his debut, Zhu would continue to raise the bar with each subsequent upload, with content that was high-octane, violent, and definitely not cool with my mom. You see, Zhu's content still incorporated many of the hallmarks of his predecessors, with gratuitous violence and outlandish death scenes still persisting as the main themes. But Zhu had managed to incorporate these traits with a level of mastery that actually managed to make them kind of charming. Over the course of the next year, the now solidified Xiao Xiao series had begun to take shape, and would soon form an unspoken narrative surrounding one aptly named protagonist. Turns out Xiao Xiao more or less translates to little guy in English, and this character quickly became the consistent focus throughout the series. In less than a year, Zhu had set the bar for what stick animation was capable of, with each subsequent release bringing brand new ideas to the table. For example, Episode 3 would include playback controls that allowed viewers to rewind their favorite moments. Episode 2 was a sequence of entertaining QuickTime challenges, and number 5 was a full-blown shooter. There were even 3D sequences incorporated into certain episodes, which literally brought a whole new dimension to an idea that was traditionally thought to be a 2D experience. Needless to say, Zhu was blowing up, and his meteoric rise soon solidified his character Xiao Xiao as the poster boy for the entire genre, spawning dozens of imitators that would mimic him in a format now known as Xiao Xiao style. This would be the turning point that elevated stick animation from an obscure internet subculture to full-blown stick mania. Yet even with all his influence, virtually nothing is known about Xiao Xiao's creator, even 20 years later. As it stands today, Zhu's Newgrounds account may be the only existing record of any kind of public profile he might have, and even that is sparse. Later sources do confirm that his legal name is Zhu Jiqiang, and he was most likely born in 1976 in Jilin, China. But apart from that, there isn't much else to go on. Heck, I'm not gonna lie, I can't even confirm that this is an actual photo of him. Yes, there are certain sources that strongly suggest it might be, but just in case, that'll be the last time I show that photo. But regardless of the mystery surrounding Zhu, there is still just enough of a breadcrumb trail online to be able to piece together his short career. Alongside the Xiao Xiao series, there appear to be 2 advertisements that feature his work, which suggests that Zhu's growing popularity as an animator was actually paying off. Turns out, Zhu was contracted by Heineken China in 2003 to help develop a cross-promotion for The Matrix Reloaded. And while it's strange that this ad campaign did exist, what's weirder is the fact that this is how they decided to push it in China. There also seems to be another ad that was done for a mall in Hong Kong, where Zhu once again utilizes his trademark stick fu. I guess martial arts really does sell in China. Anyways, at this point, it's fair to assume that Zhu Jiqiang was making a decent living as a professional animator, with his now famous Xiao Xiao character taking the spotlight in almost everything he did. With the help of Zhu's influence, stick mania had managed to go mainstream, and it wasn't until later in 2003 that this would eventually come back to bite. That same year, Nike would launch the 2003 version of their Nike Freestyle campaign, featuring a rather familiar-looking mascot. This stick figure freestyler, known simply as Stickman,
That's right, Stickman, do it, baby!
would star in each advertisement and attempt to outmatch athletes in their respective sport with an impressive display of freestyle tricks. The ads were charming, but most importantly, they were capable of amassing universal appeal due to their simple concepts and ambiguous main character. And once the commercials had begun to garner worldwide attention, it wasn't long before Zhu caught wind of the news. The animator would first hear about the ad spots from a friend who had seen the commercials on the Chinese news site Sina.com. Surprisingly though, Zhu's reaction was not one of amusement, but rather outrage. The way Zhu saw it, Nike had ripped off his own trademark character, and was now using Xiao to sell shoes. Of course, this immediately opens up an entire can of worms regarding stick figures and their validity as intellectual property, and don't worry, we will absolutely get to that. But for now, it's just important to know that he did actually seek legal advice. Upon doing so, Zhu would inform a lawyer that his character Xiao was actually registered for copyright protection. And after reviewing the evidence and comparing the two characters, the lawyer would advise Zhu that he protect his brand. From there, Zhu and his lawyer would begin to compile a case against Nike, and in July of 2004, Xiao would take Nike to court, suing for 2 million yuan. From there, Chinese news outlets would quickly catch wind of the story, and shortly after, the Flash community would too. Suddenly, the Newgrounds forums were flooded with opinions about the lawsuit, with the vast majority of users repeating the exact same thing. You can't copyright a stickman. And while there were those that sided with Zhu, many of these users were more just interested in seeing a Newgrounds user take money from a big corporation, and didn't really care for the validity of his stick figure argument. From the looks of it, users seemed to believe that Zhu's lawsuit was just one giant cash grab, and for many, his motives were now in question. During the first hearing, Zhu and his lawyer would begin to plead their case to the court, accusing Nike of appropriating Xiao's likeness for the company's own monetary gain. Zhu's lawyer claimed that the defendant wanted to use the design because they knew Xiao was popular with young people, and were attempting to appeal to that demographic. Which was a stretch. Sure, Xiao was popular, but he wasn't Limp Bizkit, Pokemon, Frosted Tips popular. The truth was, if Nike wanted to appeal to young people, they could have just put famous people in their ads, which they did when they featured famous footballer Ronaldinho in one of their commercial spots. Of course, the accuser also needed to have proof that this alleged infringement had actually impacted his brand. According to courtroom recounts, Zhu had stated that his intellectual property had been, quote, severely damaged due to Nike's illegal use, claiming that the ads had already begun to cause confusion between his character and Nike's. Zhu also stated that he was previously negotiating with publishers to release an origin story for his character, but after the Nike commercials, negotiations had ceased. Nike would then fire back with their own defense, based entirely upon the argument that you just couldn't copyright a stickman, right? Lawyers would hit this point hard, producing a hefty 18 pieces of evidence featuring stick figures in the public domain, to attempt to prove that they were free game. After this case was pleaded, Nike would attack Zhu's life points directly by stating, quote, "It is obvious that the plaintiff intended to promote himself and his Flash works by accusing a famous multinational company of copyright infringement." From the looks of it, Nike had built a strong and quite sensible counter-argument, and for a moment it seemed like the verdict was ready to fall within everyone's expectations. But here's the funny thing about Chinese copyright laws. You see, at the time, China defined creative property as an intellectual creation with originality. Which begs the question, how can we truly define something as original? Well, it's difficult, but a writer named Simon Teng, who originally covered this story, helps to explain it perfectly. Take a circle, for example. Is a circle an original idea? No, it's basic geometry, it's found in nature. But how can we make it unique? Well, let's try adding some color and maybe some patterns. Is it original now? Well, many would argue yes, because this expression of a circle is separable from the idea of a circle. We have now officially crossed the line from a simple concept to the artistic expression of a concept. So if we apply this rule to Xiao, can we confidently say that his character meets the criteria for this definition of originality? Well, according to the Chinese Intermediate People's Court, the answer was yes. While we may never know exactly how the court reached their verdict, it is possible that the fact that Xiao was an animated stick figure could have served as the basis for an argument that Zhu's character was indeed unique. Another factor that may have contributed to their case was the physical traits both characters shared, including feet and rounded-off appendages, traits that were somewhat unique to the traditional idea of a stick figure. And so, on December 29, 2004, the Beijing Intermediate People's Court ruled in favor of Zhu Jiqiang. While the original sum Zhu sued for was not met, Nike was still ordered to pay the artist 36,000 USD for the infringement, alongside a court-ordered public apology. Now, there isn't a definitive explanation as to how this decision was reached, but after getting my feet wet in some articles and brushing up on my Mandarin, I think I can make a pretty good guess. It is very possible that Zhu's lawyer could have convinced the court that Xiao was indeed as popular as they said, especially in China. This fact, combined with the similarities the characters shared, could have given the impression that a popular Chinese cartoon character was being ripped off by a large American corporation, which was kind of one big Uno reverse card on traditional circumstances. Now, it may come as no surprise that Nike wasn't exactly happy with this verdict, so the company would almost immediately file for an appeal. It was granted, and almost a year later, on November 9th, 2005, Xiao was back on the podium. But now the tides had turned. Seems like Nike had all their firepower saved up for this one, because they actually ended up winning. And this time, we know why. Turns out Nike's stick figure had one simple characteristic that managed to separate it from Xiao. Notice anything different? Well, if you look closely, Nike's stick figure appears to have a detached head, while Xiao's remains fixed to his shoulders. It may not seem like much, but when you're debating the artistic originality of a stick figure in a court of law, it's probably okay to be nitpicky. And this would ultimately be the factor that constituted Nike's property as original. So while Nike may have actually won the verdict, it's still not absurd to assume that someone at the company may have been watching a little too much Newgrounds when they devised this ad. Considering the time period, it's very possible that the current era of internet culture could have rubbed off on Nike's creative process. But was that really a sound basis for a lawsuit? I mean, Xiao had plenty of imitators online. Why wasn't Zhu going after them? Well, the answer's kind of obvious, and I think it would be naive to assume that the Xiao lawsuit was anything less than just a greedy cash grab. So, with the final ruling given in favor of Nike, Zhu was ordered to pay 8,000 USD for both instances of the trial, officially putting an end to the 2-year lawsuit. Sadly, this would also mark the end of Zhu's career online, as there is virtually no record of his activity after the ruling in 2005. Besides, at this point it had been 3 years since the last Xiao episode, and with the lack of uploads, excitement had begun to fade for the series. In 2008, the last nail was hammered when Zhu's official website would permanently go offline. Today, only websites like Newgrounds and Stickpage help to keep archives of the mysterious artist's work alive. They're simple pieces of work, yet they're special in that they were some of the first flashes ever to captivate such a large audience online. You see, Xiao hailed from a time when people would create on the internet not for the purposes of fame or money, but just to contribute, to be a part of the wonderful wave of creativity that was blossoming on technology that was so new and fascinating to all of us. I still go back to the archives sometimes. Sure, I'll watch a couple flashes, but it mostly serves as a reminder now. A reminder of when things were a little smaller, a little simpler, and a little more stick it to the man. Thanks for watching.